Good morning. Thank you very much. Let us start the talk. The talk that will go to the next slide. This is familiar. Yeah. Today's talk will be about. This is the first of the 5 sessions that I planned to make sure that you're all up to steam and enjoying life. That's the goal of this talk. First 3 items, as you can see, now dump toxic emotions and also tame your defensive emotions and resolve conflicts. These 3 are just making sure that your mind is free or empty, put it that way, so simply. What's the most important in this program is first stage of building happiness begins with making mind empty. If you see most everybody in the world who wants to achieve happiness or build happiness, this is where it starts. Therefore, I'm going to start this morning with the 2 items. The first one is dump toxic emotions and rein your defensive emotions. And then also I'll deal with what is happiness. Just before plunge into that, 1 second, give me. The reason we want to talk about this is we want to be happy. I have traveled widely in the world. No matter where you go, any part in the world, even within our country, people want to be happy. That's the goal of the humanity. And in any way I can help advance that cause and that feeling, that's the goal of my life. And that's the reason this talk is beginning. So let's go with the next slide. Here is do people want to be happy in the life? We just now said absolutely. Of course, happiness is different for each person, and it's not the same. And also, it's not measurable. We all know that it's a feeling, it's a subjective feeling. You can't really measure it with any measurements. You can grade with some studies, etc., like, but you can't actually measure it. It's a feeling of a life satisfaction. We all also know that you feel good, you feel happy, you're working, you are in the flow of things, and that's what happiness is about. And actually, there is no fixed definition that fits everybody. Indeed, any happiness that you think is a definition of happiness by itself. So basically, what we're talking about is just how to be happy, contented, and feel that life is meaningful for yourself. Some people discount simple pleasures as nothing to do with happiness. I mean, largely it's true. It's not a life-satisfying event, simple pleasures, but they're also important in my mind, because if you take a bank of happiness as together, the account that you create a happy bank in your own mind, even little things to help yourself feel good do help. So it's not totally discountable if it is something that you want to watch a movie, perhaps have an ice cream or treat yourself nice. I mean, those things are also very, very important, simple measures for the happiness, because it's happiness is a single part of a total fluidity, very easy to evaporate and fluctuating emotion. So every bit you pack it into that is an additional help in my view. Basically, happiness or unhappiness are not bad emotions, in the sense they both are always be there. I mean, you can't avoid unhappiness altogether, because there are events, loved one passed away, and you all know that, or you lost a business, you lost a job. So unhappiness itself, or feeling sad, is not necessarily totally avoidable, nor we should try to do that, nor we should live in a denial. So even unhappiness should be entertained to its normal degree, to the extent that for every event, typically people have some standard way of healing them. And it is better to heal and get back to happiness rather than deny the unhappy events or fight with them. It's not a good thing to do it. So basically, life is not totally happiness alone, but you have to deal with unhappiness, and that's the way to do it. So unhappy events are part of life, and you can't count that as being unhappy life. So understand that happiness includes a bit of unhappiness where it is appropriate to the situations. Now, move on to the next slide. The idea about happiness, as you can see, one of the eminent probably people in the world today is Dalai Lama. Is like considered any high priest in any other temples, and he's a mature man, and he values scientific idea of happiness, and therefore he had actually his definition of happiness is somehow avoiding the destructive emotions. So that's the whole idea. I mean, actually, it comes from Buddhism, right from Buddha himself, that they were fighting with the desires, craving, and all Buddha thought was that if you can kill a desire, you can be happy. But that's an extreme situation in that historical perspective. But today, we have a different perspective about life. So basically, what we're saying is that somehow you got to learn yourself, whatever the toxic emotions anybody's harboring, most of you maybe not. I mean, obviously you're elite educated and you lead sensible, rational lives. You're not, but even then you will see situations where toxic emotions will play in your mind. So what are those toxic emotions? One of the biggest emotion that people have is they hate or dislike or resent or some others for variety reasons. It doesn't have to be big issues like color, culture, nation. Those are big feelings. But even as, for example, you don't like their color of the hair, they wear their dress, they wear their talk. I mean, anything that you don't like. And we have a son, 15-year-old, for last 10, at least 7, 8 years. He uses the word, oh, I hate this, I hate this. We tell him all the time, son, don't, God's sake, hate anybody. Hate nothing. Just if you don't like it, if you have a different preference, you take it. So, I mean, this is the thing, when you hate it, who are you hating? Whoever you are hating, actually, the hate is in you, it's not in them. So it hurts this. So the point is, whether it is hate may be a strong emotion, but craving in Dalai Lama's word, these are the two words he said, if you can win, you have the happiness. But I won't stop there. The craving is like a feeling greedy, wanting more and more. You have 1 million, you want 10 millions, you want 10 million, become billionaire, whatever, anything you want, 1 car, 4 cars, small house, big house, that type of craving. So those are the two things. The whole book is about that. As far as my experience is concerned, I think most important thing in my mind to be very content and relaxed about it with any conversation with anybody is to avoid bias. You don't want to keep a bias about it. You may know the person may not be honest all the time, but this may be the first time he's telling you the truth. So many things happen, even though there may be a pattern of behavior in those people. Even then, when you're listening every time fresh, listen as though you don't know, you don't have any bias about that person, whether about a principle or a policy or something that will work or doesn't work. Always entertain with a total, pure, intelligent mind rather than having any bias, because bias truly hurts ourselves. With a bias, we build a lot of barriers around. You don't talk to this person because you don't like that person. You don't work with that person because he's cheat or not good. Things like that. So likewise, holding the grudge. All these things you can see. Extreme guilt. Guilt as such. Some part of mild guilt is okay. You feel bad about things and you get over. But extreme guilt is not a good idea. I used to say I never feel guilty, but I will correct that to say I think the feeling of guilt is okay. My idea about why I say I don't feel guilty, because at any given time, whether good or bad, I made the decisions because based on the situations. I may have made misjudgments, I may have made mistakes, I own them. But I don't feel guilty to suffer so much that you must get over the things that you did bad things and you should learn about it, but get over and go past. That's my view about the guilt is. Of course, there are obvious toxins, the drugs, alcohol. Is the money also, I included thoughtfully. Is money a toxin or a tonic? I think it is a tonic where you need it for as long as you need it, and can be make life very good, easy, enjoyable, and you need it. Without the tonic, I mean, life could be miserable. You need to basic needs, even luxury needs, whatever it is. But at the same time, money could be a toxic thing. What I found out that as you accumulate wealth, it gets into a state where the idea about thinking of these people changes. They think that some arrogance builds in, the power grows into them, and the humbleness, simpleness, reality of life doesn't set in that easily. I'm not categorizing everybody, a few of them, some of them, and it has that tendency to make that. Actually, the same thing, when the students go to a school, do they go to a public school or a private school? They come different with a different frame of mind. The point that people who are money at a higher stakes, millionaires, billionaires, whatever, they must understand that they made and they have done this, accumulated this wealth on the shoulders of millions of working, ordinary working people. That perspective, they have it, they have a respect to the people, they will proportionately, award them, deal with them with simplicity. That's fine. Say, for example, like Warren Buffett. I mean, he is a billionaire, gives away, and yet very humble, simple, and a guy. I don't necessarily saying everybody should be like him. You can enjoy life as best as you want to, nothing wrong with that, but do not forget the roots where you come from, where money, I mean, nobody is born all billionaires. Most of them have become themselves. Next slide. We'll keep an eye on the time. Now, the other set of emotions that you must understand is the anxiety, fear, and worrisomeness, and extreme anger. So these emotions were built into our evolutionary system for a good reason, because we need as humans to understand the situation, assess the situation, and if it is danger, run away from it, or perhaps fight and win it. So this is what is called a defensive mechanism. Body is built into that way. These emotions also linked with our hormones, and they work together. The whole body gets either energized and get ready to fight and knock them out and protect yourself, or if the situation is too dangerous, you want to protect yourself, run away. So these are good emotions. But today, those emotions are not as big a need for us as it was when we were in jungles, when we were in very risky situations. We don't need a blatant risk situations that face us every day. I mean, we're still possible, but that's the situation. But what is happening with these emotions? They're good, energizing, powerful, and useful at the early stages. But if they are employed every time, all the time, extended time, the curve of happiness and advantage is overwhelmed and goes down, and you become disabled and depressed, or in a great negative emotional state. So therefore, you should understand that it is okay to have anxiety and fear. I mean, obviously, if I'm going to talk just now, I would have a little alerted. My defense systems are high. Naturally, you can understand anything you're about to do. It can happen. A sportsman will feel like that, or a speaker will feel like that. So those defense systems are good to employ and engage and enjoy, but do not do it too often, too long, until they hurt you. That's the whole idea. That's why I said This is natural defense emotions, but it could be problematic if you don't control them. And so likewise, so we just have to understand where to stop, where to push those defense emotions. Now, a lot has happened in last 30 to 40 years, late 19th, 20th century and the beginning of this century. This is the new information I want to share with you, relatively new if you haven't been studying about happiness. And actually, this is the information that you're going to get. Is this information has been accumulated by mostly leading psychological professors at different centers in the nation. And one of the lady that produced this study, that Science of Happiness, she came from actually from Russia when she was 10-year-old. Her name is Sonia first name, Lubomirsky. She wrote a book called How of Happiness. So basically, these are only guiding numbers. Don't take them strictly how they are. What they found out scientifically, that there are 3 sources of happiness that we can work on. Let's take the genetic or inherited happiness away from the 3. You can see the 50%, but it is estimated it's anywhere between 35 to 50%. It's not a definite number. But however, some portion of our happiness in our life is definitely somewhat related to genetics. Now, question is, there's no single gene that is identified to cause this problem. It is a multi-gene and incomplete penetration type of situation. That's why it's not like a black hair or a blue eyes that genes create. This is like something that is there inherited, but at the same time interfered with the way you were raised and what circumstances prevail around you. So there seems to be an interaction between heritage and happiness. Nonetheless, we all know that no matter how extreme conditions that human is subjected to, we are extremely resilient. We face any tough situations. I mean, you say that people, hunter-gatherers or in agriculture eras, they lived only up to 40 years, 50 years in their lives. So there was a massive danger, risk for the life in those days. Even then, people are still happy to some extent, enjoyed. To that matter, some of the scientific studies tell us actually it didn't change much about the population happiness. There are a host of reasons for that. We will deal with that differently. But for now, just know the fact that there is what is called inherited or familially transmitted happiness, and typically it has some role in your life, and also typically it controls what is called set point happiness. This is a point where it holds it. The other point is this 50% is not 50% of your total attainable happiness. It is a variable component. It could be up to 50, but in that heritable happiness, you may be only inheriting 25% of that 50. So it's not, again, a definite measure. It is a variable number. It's not a fixed number to everybody at 50%. Now, that's something that you may say we can't do too much about. We are born with it. We have to live with it. Yeah, it basically tells us that there is incredible resilience and happiness in us. It is coming from that only. That portion, it holds back. Even if bad things happen, your happiness went down, the set point happiness it's like a set thermometer. It will lift up slowly as time goes by. And likewise, you are very high in happiness. You're happy, buying a new car, going to honeymoon, and it gradually settles down in about a few months. So that's where the genetic happiness works. Now, what is new that we didn't know before is this 50-40% happiness. This 40% is called voluntary, or it is activity related. This is buildable. This is the most important thing. This is the science revealing that this is the portion that you can work on, which we didn't know before. And we'll be dealing with these activities as we go along the lesson. But broadly mentioning, just to mention them, what activities can make you happy? There are, number one is the relationships, and whether it is within the family, with the spouses, partners, and friends, and all that, or with your peers at work and boss, managers, work level, any relationship that you can maintain and be happy, it's a big emotionally happy builder. Likewise, staying positivity, expressing gratitude, expressing apologies, and counting your blessings, like that. There are many other, empathy. So we will deal that as a separate class, and because that's where we are going to work. I mean, the happiness building, that portion of happiness building is in our hands. That's the reason. Now, third portion of happiness, interestingly, we got to know, is that our circumstances. We think that our happiness is controlled by our circumstances. We plead guilty, we plead victimization, we feel circumstances, we blame them, we blame others, we blame circumstances, illnesses, poverty. Interestingly, the scientific studies tell us that's only contributes to about 10% of your happiness. What is that? Why is it? What they have found is that if they took the patients with, say, chronic paralysis, chronic renal dialysis, chronic pulmonary problems, when they studied it, their happiness, wherever that level was when the illness hit them, they go down, no doubt, but within about 4 to 6 weeks, maybe a couple of months or 2 months later, they almost come back to where they were before the illness started. Like that, we have a lot of evidences. Even if you take extreme gross circumstances, concentration camps, death chambers, those people who went through, no question, that is not an easy thing to recover from it. And we have a lot of them around us who are still happy, living happily with the negative scars on their mind. They talk about that, they heal it. But the point is this: all the circumstances, no matter what the circumstances, even poverty will influence. That means all poor people are not 100% happy because they don't have money. Even poverty, it's interesting. Even if you take Syrian war, for example, there's so many thousands are homeless, foodless, whatever. Even if they don't have anything to wear, they don't have a place to live, yet if you look at them in a private moment, they still have happy moments. So that's the point. So understand that we can work on this 40%, and we can also work adapt to circumstances even better or faster than what now that you know how to do it, you can do it faster. So you have about 50 to 60% really control on your own happiness creating activities. And one more thing, it's a battle between happiness and unhappy situations or a stress. If you can win the stress, if you come to about 50% of your happiness level, once you go to 50, 60, 70, you're already happy. It doesn't have to be 100% happy, 100% happiness all the time. What it simply means is that your brain is relaxed and you're contented. You feel that there's a meaning in your life. You're serving others, as we talked last time, who you serve under that heading. I discussed about that. You're all doing extremely useful human service to the patients, people. Like that, millions and billions of people are doing the similar services to give you, when you go back to Publix to pick up stuff, when you go back to home to build, when you furnish your home, all those things are done by somebody else. So that's the purpose of humanity as together. So realizing these things and being contented is enough. It doesn't mean happiness is giggling or sporting all the time. Now, I want to reflect on a few things. One is why is this happiness is buildable today more than ever before? The reason is that I will present some data now. This data comes from A guy by name Steven Pinker, he wrote a book reflecting massive data, world data about what has the wealth before, health before, crime before, 100 and 200 years ago versus now. For example, take a look at this slide. Right now, the GDP or GMP has gone up from, I mean, you can see the steep increase in last 100 years, bottom line. The national world wealth has increased from 2 trillion about 100 years ago. Now it is $300 trillion wealth in the world. And this slide is about life expectancy. I don't know if you guys see that completely or my picture is blocking, but anyway, you can also see life expectancy remained about 30 to 40 years for many until 1800s, 1900s. From there, it took a big steep. It's doubled already. It's about 75, 80, depending on which country we're talking about. World poverty, for example, in last 50 years has come down by 40%. Right now, the poverty level in the world is only about 10%. About 10% people are poor in the world. The reason I'm making these statistics is not to just to give you an idea, because you have happiness. That's not there's no direct equation. To that matter, they studied that issue also. Scientists have studied that one. What they found out is that if a family, like in the United States, of 4 children, 2 children and husband and wife, a typical family, if they make about $75,000 per year, this seems that the happiness is almost attainable at that level. Maximum happiness is attainable at that level. But incomes below that level, the income is related to the happiness level. Because if you don't have, you can't pay the bills, you can't pay the car rents, whatever. I mean, you can't pay groceries. Obviously, it's tough to be happy. It is bothering. Even then, they get adapted, just to let you know. But once you have attained this income, all the steps that we're going to talk, what we're saying about happiness building efforts should work even better. Totally, it should be free. Indeed, further scientific studies tell us that any income beyond 75,000 approximately, actually people felt more happier only when they gave it some help to others. There are enough scientific studies and papers about that also. Otherwise, the people who give, donate, gain more happiness than those who didn't. Actually, it was a college study. One of the professor gave about $150 or $200 to 50 students, and she told them, either you can spend on yourself or you can spend on others, save money. And those who spent on others were much happier, and they talked about many times, than those who spent maybe on themselves, go a movie or ate some dinner, something like that. So, but bottom line is money and happiness is something that I just want to give you some ideas. Now, therefore, I'm not equating money to happiness, but there is some relationship. I mean, if your mind is not totally toxic with many things, and if you have wealth, in my mind, at least in my life, money made a difference in my happiness. I was happy always, but definitely it makes it more comfortable to have money as well. And therefore, the reason is that, as you saw in those numbers, I mean, we have enormous statistics, not only about money. The world, for example, if you take criminality is going down, freedom is increasing, equality is increasing, women's rights have gone up, all racial discrimination is coming down. Not in the particular instant, don't mistake mistake my talk in this current event, because every event has its purpose. It will deliver its purpose. That's a different discussion I'll touch upon later. But bottom line is, overall, if you see, I mean, we're not, there are no slaves anymore. Things like that. If you have to understand a broader worldview over a historic perspective, rather than just take one section at any given time. I mean, we'll deal with that as we go along. Bottom line is, we are saying that people have gotten freedom. Individuals have gotten total freedom since the French Revolution, more or less. Before that, the monarchs were controlling the world. Monarch was like a divine power. Absolute monarchy prevailed. But French Revolution put them to bed and created rights for a common person, common women. Rights of men were written, rights of women were written after that. And of course, afterwards, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness has come into our constitution as well. So just to remember that the world is changing. So changing and giving opportunities to be happy. There are issues why we are not happy necessarily, because the reason is there are two important things. We can deal with that later, but basically one is expectation. The moment you have something you get used to, it's called adaptation and expectation. These are the two important ones to remember. If you got something, you achieve something, you get adapted. Just that's another thing that we're talking about. That's the one that I was talking about in the three circles. There's an adaptation factor to it. So likewise here, when you adapt to what you have, and you expect even more, so there is a gap between expectation and what you have. So this happiness is being replaced by increasing expectations. Anyway, the point I am trying to make is, people who want to be rationally use the benefits that we have, wealth, freedom to travel, freedom to speak, freedom to live anywhere, freedom to marry anybody, live with anybody. So these are things that each person, each individual is getting more and more freedoms. It should give, legitimately thinking, reasonably thinking, it should give happiness. So, but it's not the case exactly in that proportionality. But overall, I think people are more happier, in my mind, although scientific studies don't show it, because the reason why they don't show it is that they are cutting at a single segment of happiness versus expectations. So that is, the graph is moving. So that's why you don't see it that glaringly. Also, there's one more important thing. Happiness for a man who can afford, a person or family who can afford everything, or unhappiness of theirs is different from somebody who can't afford that. If you can't pay bills, that's a totally different situation, a different unhappiness. Or you have $1 million already, you didn't make enough $1 million more, that unhappiness is different. You can't compare both the same. So bottom line is that, in my view, happiness is buildable. This is the whole point about this talk. There's a lot more to talk about it, but if you feel that what I say is convincing, that happiness is buildable today than any time before, because we know the science today that we can build it, because we know that we can afford it, material supplies are there, and as long as we can rein or train our mind to utilize and stay in that limits, we can be happy. That's the whole point. And also, overall, people are helping people better. There's no question about it. Because when you can afford something, you can give it to, you can also afford to help others. That's also a material point. Besides, the tendency for people to help people is very well known, and we know that. Actually, people helping people is the most widely built matrix within the society. We don't see it because they don't come into the news. And there could be hundreds of examples I can give you that type. And that perspective of mine has increased more once I started working in the nonprofit sector. When I travel India, I see villages and villages, and how much each family helps each other in trouble, in difficult situations is incredible. Mostly in India, it's not as much charities giving other side. They'll be helping within their families, those who are backward, who can't afford, things like that. So many other aspects are there, how to understand people helping people. The other thing is, of course, some or other, even some of the billionaires, not necessarily many, but some good people who have good intentions, good heart, like Bill Gates and his wife, Melinda, Buffett, etc., etc., like they're setting an example to give away money for the benefit of the humanity. And that's also a good trend, and I think it's coming more and more, becoming more and more. That's how I see it. I have a positive eye, and I just see that way, but I don't know if everybody sees. Some people don't agree with me, which is okay. Don't feel, if you don't agree at the end of it, it's fine. But if you got a few points out of what I'm talking, if you got two things you learn, that's fine. I'm happy about it. So next, let's go to the next one. Now, I want to talk about, sorry. There is one certain things, small little things we can do, and it happens through our hormones and in the brain as well as in our body. So one of the segment of hormone, endorphins. You all are familiar. I don't want to dwell too long. Endorphins, exercise is an outstanding example to be happy. I mean, you exercise for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever, your endorphins are up and you're already feeling good. Whether it is exercise has proven, multiple papers are there about exercise and health. There's no question about it. Even it can hinder the onset of, and also onset of the Alzheimer's disease, mental decline, mental sharpness increases. It is very obvious. You see, a lot of ideas I get after I hit a pre-core machine or while I am on the machine or after exercising, you feel so fresh, and new ideas, creative ideas will come into that. The same thing like if you're taking fresh bath or shower, whatever it is. So things like that. So exercise is such an important thing. I don't have to, because I know that most of you already are aware of the benefits. So I don't want to dwell or waste time on that one. Now, sex, of course, I don't have to dwell on it, but it is a good release of hormones. It releases a tremendous surge of hormones and makes you feel happy. And so as long as people can be compatible, happy, have good relationships, friends and partners, I mean, it is good if both of them know that sex is a good thing. It doesn't have to be necessarily all through, but even sitting together, holding hands, kissing, hugging, anything like that. It doesn't, it's just a fact that contact, even simple contact of persons sitting to each other. Unfortunately, I can't talk that too much in this social distancing issue times because of this COVID, but that's the sort of thing. Any proximity is a good hormone releaser. Laughing, I don't know if you know or not, there are laughing clubs. They go to parks, 20 people, 30 people, it's open invitation. You go and you laugh your guts break off. I mean, tremendously, for no reason. It's not that they have any, and one guy, two guys laughs, the others laugh. It seems that even then, with no reason, if you just start laughing, it seems it floods those happy juice in our body. So remember that if there's nothing else, close your room and just laugh your heart away, and you will see the differences. Of course, meditation, we know, is a big thing in the Western world, and also it has been in the Eastern world for centuries anyway. It does make you feel relaxed. One point I want to make it clear: the meditation, mindfulness, yoga, all these measures that we're talking about here, particularly the meditation as well, they're what is called suppressing. They control the emotions. They evaporate some level of toxic emotions. But what I'm discussing is a little different. I'm discussing not only suppressing. It's not like putting a bucket of water on a fire. That's what a meditation does. It does. Even then, if you put water on fire every day, you're fine. But that's why you need to do everyday maintenance as a meditation. Those are all good measures. I'm not against, and actually I propose, and I do yoga as well. But the point is that what I'm just trying to drive a point here is to say that what we are going to do is to extirpate, by understanding what these problems are and how to do it. We should extirpate these problems so that once you go through the sessions, maybe practice for 4 to 6 weeks, you should be able to be happy for a longer term. That's the only thing. What I'll do, I'll finish in a couple of minutes, and then we'll take some questions before I'll give you question answer time, another at least 10 minutes. Well, all these things are pretty obvious. Most of you know, therefore I don't want to. Group exercises are also good. Listening to music is, we all do, and that's why you do. But these are all reinforcing facts. So if you listen to music, remember it's good. It makes you happy. So listen. Sniffing vanilla, lavender, sprays or etc. Ginseng and spicy food, but be careful about spicy food, how much you can eat. Sometimes it could make you heartburn, but I don't see any negativity if you can tolerate it. Now, oxytocin, another most important hormone, and this is an awesome hormone. As you know, it goes up during pregnancy, childbirth, and even hugging, kissing, sex, etc. Taking deep breathing, all these things. Breath is also good relaxation. Breath, virtually every meditation, yoga, and all that talks about the breath. What is so good, so important about breath is what we're trying to do really. I told you just now, emptying the mind, keeping the mind empty. Everything that they're trying to do is a mantra or a breath. What they're trying to do, since it is not easy to keep the mind empty, because our mind is like a monkeying thing. It keeps on thinking about it. It has what is called self-talk. As long as self-talk is about positivity or a good thing or a neutrality is okay, then you don't even ignore it. But what meditation, yoga, everything teaches, uses the technique, is that they're trying to, instead of mind going 10 different ways, they want to bring the mind to one point. That is about just a breath. So they tell you, focus on how the breath is going in, when the breath, air touches nostrils, follow them, track down, let the diaphragm expand, things like that, and belly, balloon. So this feeling, what you're trying to do, you're trying to focus onto one thing. This is the principle in meditation. Same thing, that everything you do at any time, try to compress to one or two things, one thing, and that's the way the mind will enjoy it better. It doesn't mean that you can deal with a couple of things at one time, so that don't get conflicted about that. I can clarify that on the question answer. But bottom line is that oxytocin is a good hormone. Any way you can release it, whatever you do, things like that, whether it is food, exercise, eating bananas, eggs, pepper, etc. Or it builds a trust. Trust is an incredible thing. I mean, if you trust somebody or they trust you, I don't know, it is an enormously powerful emotion. I mean, you feel one together with them, like empathy is. Serotonin is another neurotransmitter as well as hormone. So we will it's a lot of it is in the guts, And talking about guts are pretty much wired like a brain. It's a second brain, more or less. That's why you say, "Oh, my guts tell me," a gutsy feeling. That's how it is. Important it is. Again, exercise seems to come everywhere. Anything. So exercise. When I say exercise, remember, you don't have to be just hitting a machine, weighting lifts, pumping. It could be simple walking. And it doesn't have to be half an hour, 1 hour continuously. Every 5 minutes, 10 times a day is even better in my mind. Because in 5 minutes vigorous activity or jumping or expanding, relaxing, perhaps listening to music will retune you again, recenter your mind again. So therefore, even at work, if it took a 5 minutes gap time, and perhaps to either to walk or just keep yourself calm, those things are good because it increases the productivity rather than making the brain get totally tired and flat and efficiency goes down. So as I said, exercise is a no-brainer, and remembering happy moments, chocolate, dark chocolate, turmeric. Turmeric is also pretty well used nowadays. A lot of people, sweet potatoes, berries, walnut, omega oil, all these things are supposed to increase your hormones, and they help make you feel good. So that gives you a few more minutes to have questions. I think dopamine, again, same. These are the 4 happy juice. Listen to music. You can see the theme comes repeatedly, same thing. Food, the same thing. Avocados, almonds here, which weren't there. Sleep well, exercise, and eat fish, listen to music. So that is the end of the slideshow.